All right, welcome everybody. So excited that you're here. I'm your host, Julie Boye. I'm going to take you through a short presentation. Just going to grab it there. Ooh, on gratitude and gut health tonight. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time. And we're going to take about 20 to 25 minutes and then leave some time if you've got some questions. I'm happy to get into that as well. So a little bit about me before we get started. So I am a self-professed gut health geek. I am really interested in gut health and the microbiome. It's something I've been studying for a number of years. Before people even really knew what the microbiome was, I was reading books about gut health, taking courses, seminars, just to better understand how our body interacts with the world. I've been partnered for 16 years with USANA Health Sciences, where I've become an expert in nutritional supplementation and how to serve my clients in that way. I'm also the founder of a program called the 30-Day Whole Body Detox, which ran for 10 years and served thousands of clients across Canada and the US. And we've just upgraded it to the 6-week gut reset in the fall of 2021. So we're just about to launch our spring gut reset for 2022 with my partner, Kathy Skelcher. I'm also very passionate about gratitude. We're going to talk about gratitude and gut health. You would think that the two aren't related, but trust me, there is definitely a connection in those two. And my podcast is in its third year. It's called Wake Up with Gratitude, and I have a new episode every week, sometimes an extra one. I have an extra one going out tomorrow if you're watching this live. I studied kinesiology at university. The irony of the whole thing is that I never took the nutrition course because I was told it was too hard. So interesting when I think back to that time. I'm like, but that's the course that would have served me the most in my future career, which I didn't expect this to be. But there you go. And as I mentioned, very passionate self-study on the gut microbiome. It's just something we're just in the beginning of the research in gut microbiome. There's a lot more to learn. And so it's just a really interesting field. Okay. So what I'm going to share with you tonight, I'm going to share with you how to prepare to eat your food. And some of you might be preparing dinner right now while you're watching this. So maybe you can implement some of these tips right away. We're going to talk about some ways to help your digestion in general with some simple tips that I have. We're going to talk about fiber because fiber is generally, when we're talking about gut health, fiber must be addressed, which is lack of fiber, reducing our stress levels, and some helpful supplements at the end. Okay, so let's talk about gratitude and eating and when we eat and prepare our food. So if possible, if you're not driving or, doing something else at the same time, I would love for you to just close your eyes with me for just a minute. And I want you to imagine you're sitting in a classic Italian pizzeria. There is a wood fire oven that's at like 800 degrees. And you've asked for a classic margherita pizza, which is, the beautiful crust with marinara sauce, some fresh mozzarella and basil. And in this restaurant, you can see the wood-fired, oven. You can see it from where you're sitting. So you can see them sliding your pizza in. You can see it bubbling around the edges and getting a little bit dark and just the cheese melting, and you can smell it from where you are. And oh my goodness, the waiter just brings that pizza over to your table, just fresh out of the oven. And you sit for a moment and you just inhale the scent of that authentic Italian pizza. Open your eyes. Now, I guarantee, I'm salivating and I'm telling the story, right? I guarantee you that you've already started to produce saliva. And when we take a moment to pause before we eat, just even to think about eating, like we just did, we just thought about eating, we put ourselves in this place of preparing to eat. Our body, the signal from our brain tells our body to prepare for digestion. And what that does in our body is there's more saliva produced, there's an increase in stomach acid, and your liver and your pancreas get ready to inject digestive enzymes to help you to digest your food. They put that into the stomach. So in our hurried lifestyles, we often will be eating on the go, in the car, in between the kids' sports, rushing, someone's rushing home to get dinner before going out to a class or an event. It's not often that we take a pause before we eat. And when we bring a gratitude practice into eating our food, or even preparing our food and acknowledging our food and where it came from and all of these things, these moments of gratitude allow us to pause, and they allow our digestive processes to get going. They allow us to be prepared to eat. And in that case, our body actually will digest our food better. You've heard the saying, you are what you eat. But the truth is, you are what you digest. So you can eat whatever you like. Even if you're eating kale, if you're not digesting that kale, and kale is actually very hard to digest because it's a very fibrous food, which we need, very hard to digest. You're not getting the benefits, the nutrition of this particular food. The other place that gratitude can help us is also while we're eating. If we're thinking, we're being mindful about where my food came from, or thanking the person, who made this food. Just thinking about the land and the connection back to our food, right? We have often such a lack of connection to where our food came from. I think this is a practice we can learn so well from, Indigenous First Nations. That practice of connecting your food to where it came from it's one of there's so many incredible food practices for the Indigenous community, but that's just a small part of it. But I think that's something that we can adopt. We can remember where our food came from. And it doesn't matter, even if you picked up your food through a drive-through, you can still connect back. I mean, there was a cow at some point that made, that was that burger. The bread, it came from grain, right? That had to be made into flour, that had to be put into a recipe and baked. So that is just one of the simplest ways that gratitude can help your gut health. Just looking at the time there. So when we look at digestion in general, when you are chewing your food, so your oral cavity is so critical for so many things, taking care of your oral health. The oral microbiome is different from the gut microbiome. I won't get into that today. It was something I talked about last week if you missed that one, but chewing our food is so critical to being able to absorb it. So if we don't chew our food enough, I like to say that, that there's only teeth in your mouth. There's no teeth in your esophagus or anywhere further down the digestive tract. So using your teeth to chew your food can really help. Now, of course, like chewing it down to basically a liquid would be ideal, but that's not realistic. And that's not what most people are doing, myself included. So we're going to just aim to chew 5 times, and being conscious of just chewing our food 5 times can really help. I want to mention water. So water is obviously one of the most important things for our health. We are made of water. We need water to stay hydrated. Our brain needs water. Our digestive functions need water. If we're having lots of fiber, we need water. However, the one caveat is, if you're drinking a lot of water right before you eat, it can dilute your stomach acid, which makes it harder for your food to break down and go into the small intestine, that's where the nutrition gets absorbed. So if you, this happens all the time when you go to a restaurant, right? What do? They bring you a glass of water before you eat. So try and resist the urge to drink that glass of water before you eat, lest you dilute your stomach acid. And paying attention. I love the phrase, all foods fit. I think there's a time and a place for all foods in our daily diet, the way that we eat. But another, wonderful expert that I learned from as well, she wisely said, 7 billion people, 7 billion diets, meaning that what I eat and you eat and the way that we feel when we consume food is going to be very different. So paying attention to how a food makes you feel and also how that food makes you feel the next day. You know, when I'm doing the 6-week gut reset program, that's what we're thinking about a lot. We're just thinking about how the food made us feel. How did we digest that food? And plant foods can be very difficult to digest. So it's important to pay attention to that as well. You know, you might be like, I'm going to stock up on fiber. We're talking about fiber in a sec, but you might end up with a lot of strong smelling gas after that. So maybe you've got to think about, you know, okay, well, if I'm going to eat a lot of that, then maybe I should be taking a digestive enzyme ahead of time, or maybe reduce my portion a little bit as my body's getting used to it. And the last thing, which again goes to fiber, is to eat it whole. Whenever possible, eating things whole really does help with that feeling of fullness, that addition of fiber, and then getting a variety. I mean, we've heard this before, eat a rainbow. There's a reason for that. There's different micronutrients in different colored fruits and vegetables. Okay, I've mentioned fiber, I think 5 times already. So fiber, why are we not forgetting about fiber? The reason we're not forgetting about fiber is that the majority of the population, and I mean the large majority of the population, does not get enough fiber in their diets. And not only do we need fiber, but we need different types of fiber because they each have a different role. So you've probably already heard of soluble and insoluble. So soluble is the one that dissolves in water. That includes plant pectins and gums. Like chia seed is really good if you think of soluble fiber, because what it does is it actually, not only does it dissolve in the water, but it kind of creates that gel-like consistency and helps to remove things from your digestive system. The insoluble fiber, so that's the one that doesn't dissolve in water. And that's when we think of roughage, like that's really what insoluble fiber is. And having too much insoluble fiber in one meal or in one day, if we're not used to it, can really be very uncomfortable and difficult for us to digest. Well, we're not digesting it, but for our digestive system to be able to process it and get it out the other end. The one that you might not have thought of that's really important, and especially as we look at the gut microbiome, is resistant starch and prebiotic. So a resistant starch is a carbohydrate that resists digestion, right? Which is why it fits in the fiber family in the small intestine and then ferments in the large intestine. As the fibers ferment, they act as a prebiotic, which is food for the good bacteria in the gut. So you've likely heard of probiotics before, right? That's become fairly commercialized, but prebiotic is the food for that probiotic, and they need that food in order for your gut microbiome to stay healthy. We need to make sure it's got the food to actually feed the gut microbiome. So let's talk a little bit about some of the foods that we might want to try, including in our diet, to raise our fiber level gradually, very gradually. Brussels sprouts are still, I think they're still barely in season this time of year, but I love Brussels sprouts. I roast them in the oven. I mean, they can be air fried. I don't have an air fryer, but I know that they're very good in the air fryer, I've been told. Chicory root, if you're the first time you try chicory root, keep it very low quantities on a lot of these things. Garlic and onions have that inulin that I mentioned, and fructooligosaccharides, which is another type of fiber. I just have a note on fructooligosaccharides. So they are a short chain fructose sugar molecule, and they're bits of insoluble fiber that optimize the food movement of food through your digestive tract. They are found naturally in many plants and are a source of natural sweetness. And since they are an insoluble fiber, they are low glycemic, which helps maintain healthy blood sugars. So that is what a fructooligosaccharide is. Leeks, asparagus, banana. Bananas are great in so many ways. I love bananas. Oats, so many great ways to, use oats in our life. Apples, I mean, there definitely is something to the apple a day, keeps the doctor away. Konjac root, so interesting. I was just at Kathy's house today, the one I mentioned I'm doing the new 6-week gut reset with, and she had a konjac root pasta, and it's not pasta, it's like a noodle that's made from konjac root. And I said, how is your gut like after having konjac root? Because I knew that it was a very high fiber food. And she's like, well, actually, if you look on the label of this product, it says very clearly that you have to drink a lot of water and to not have a very big portion of it because of the quantity of fiber. So you can, I just didn't know contact root is available in like a bag as like a replacement for pasta. So there you go. So it's very, very, very high in fiber, can keep you really, really full, but also again, caution on the fiber. Flax seeds, you can just add them to anything as well. Jicama, which is a very traditional type of food, turnips, and good old bran. I mean, bran, there's a reason why our parents used to have, their oat bran. God, those pellets. I don't know if anybody else's parents used to have like that bran cereal that was like these little, they look like little pellets, like of, I don't know, like bird food or something. Anyway, but I kept them regular. So worked for them, I guess. I don't know, not my thing. I'll tell you about a product I use this. I had to eat, cardboard tasting cereals. Okay. Now I mentioned stress at the beginning. Stress in itself really negatively affects our ability to digest and absorb food. And there are so many ways that we can reduce our stress level. I'm just going to talk on a few that relate to this whole digestion and gratitude. So getting outside. So getting outside on its own does help to reduce our stress levels. But when we walk after a meal, that can also help our digestive processes. So not only do we take a moment to, leave the dishes behind and just get outside and go for a quick walk around the block. It's getting to the point, days are getting longer and it's getting easier to maybe go out for that walk after a meal and allow your body's digestive processes to work. Don't go for a workout, just moving your body, getting outside. And when you're outside, you can include gratitude in that walk. You can notice around you, right? Notice your neighborhood, notice the trees, and maybe, it's spring as I'm recording this. Maybe there's flowers are starting to bloom, right? I mean, I do live on Vancouver Island. I think my friend just mentioned that their tree was blooming. So, we are lucky that way. And another way, again, that can help with digestion is really starting your day with a stretch. Just stretching your body out after being lying in bed all day, or even a little bit of movement in the morning can help your body prepare for breaking the fast, breakfast. Now, a regular gratitude practice has definitely been shown. There's, scientific studies that show how it has a beneficial effect on our mindset, how we feel, stress reduction, all of these things, reduction in cortisol levels. So there are so many ways to practice gratitude, and I could talk about that for hours. If you know me, you know that I just love talking about how we practice gratitude. A morning practice to me is critical, but it can be as simple as changing the name of your alarm to say, I am grateful, or wake up grateful, or thank you for this day. Just to remind you that today is not promised. Today is a gift. And even just pausing for a moment in the morning just helps, again, reducing the stress, reducing the go, 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 reminding you that today is a gift. As we go throughout our day, there are opportunities for gratitude wherever we look. And I find that gratitude, is a mindful practice. I took a really cool seminar last night with another expert, Jillian Gertzen, and she was talking about self-compassion, and mindfulness is, one of the 3 steps to self-compassion. And we talked about how gratitude is that mindful process, because it is when you're in gratitude, you're in the present. When we're in the present, we're not worried about the past or stressing about the future. We're just able to be. I mean, I would love to be like that all the time. I know that I'm not. I'm working on it, but I look for those moments, look for little moments throughout the day of where I can find gratitude. And then, of course, ending your day with gratitude. And that can look like a gratitude journal, which is something that I really enjoy doing, but it doesn't have to. It can maybe be a short gratitude meditation, or even just lying in bed and just saying a few things that you're grateful for out loud or in your head. Maybe it's something you can do with your kids. You can share what you're grateful for if you haven't already done that, before a meal. there are just endless ways to practice gratitude. And all of these things help to reduce stress levels. And the lower our stress is, the better we digest our food. You know this intuitively, right? When you're nervous about something, right? Your stomach is all in knots. It's very hard to eat. You might not digest food. Some people might throw up, right? When they're really nervous or anxious. I've seen this happen with my own child when she gets very anxious. My kid loves to eat. So she's a growing girl, but when she is anxious, her digestion shuts down. And I think as adults, we forget the connection between, how our mood is and our stress levels and how well we digest our food. So these are just some ideas of how you can practice gratitude. Okay, pardon me, I'm just checking my time. Oh, doing great. Okay, so I'm just want to mention a few of my favorite USANA supplements that I use for gut health specifically. So the Fiber G Active, that's the first one. I should mention, this is really important. So the USANA products are made in an FDA approved facility to pharmaceutical grade standards. What that means for you as a client means that when you purchase a product from USANA, what's on the label is in the bottle every single time, and the quality is guaranteed. If you're choosing to invest in nutritional supplements, and I know so many of you are, sometimes you're getting not what's actually in the bottle. And so you've paid and you've spent your hard-earned money on a product because you know the benefits of it, but that product isn't in the bottle. And that is definitely a problem in US and Canada. It is worse in the United States. However, USANA also does research behind their products. So every ingredient has the research and the science to back it up as to why it's there and the benefit as well. Also, USANA has clinical trials on a number of their products. And the other thing is these products are effective at supporting the gut microbiome, which is very critical. So the first one there on the left, the kind of bluey turquoisey bag called Fiber G Active. I'm actually out of my Fiber G. I'm so sad. Why I love this product is it has several different kinds of fiber, and it can be just added to anything because it's tasteless and flavorless. It doesn't have anything artificial. It's just the fiber. You can't have it by itself because it is just fiber. You must have it with at least water, but it doesn't taste like anything. So you wouldn't, I mean, I've heard that you can do that, but I wouldn't do it. I would add it. I just add it to my shake. So great way though to help with regularity, keep things moving, and also just increase your daily fiber intake in a really simple way. Fiber, of course, comes from food. It's just not always easy in a day to get as much fiber as we'd like. Then the USANA digestive enzyme. So I love this product. I keep it on hand at all times. I do take it with me when I go out to eat, just to make sure I'll have it before any meal when I go out, I'll have it beforehand just in case. And I just love how well it has artichoke extract. That's where there's a picture of artichoke, which is really known to be good for, again, to improve digestive upset. This detox tea mix packet. So I love tea, I do, but dandelion tea doesn't taste that good. And I love that they put this dandelion root tea with a couple of other things, and it tastes really good. It's super easy to make on the go because you don't have the tea bag to dispose of. So it makes it easier for portability, and it also it prepares really quickly. And so I'm a really big fan of this. It really does support your gut microbiome. I find actually if I've had trouble digesting a meal, the digestive enzymes kind of work better before the meal, and the detox tea mix works really well after a meal. It is a mild diuretic though. I just had a client tell me how the first time they had it, it did actually have a bit of a diuretic effect. So for some people it does. I've never had that issue. And then the last thing is the USANA probiotic. And what I love about this one is it's gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free, and it's shelf stable at room temperature for up to 2 years. And why this is important, this is how clever USANA is. So the reason that they're able to have this stable at room temperature and guaranteed, so it says 12 billion live microorganisms, right? At any time during until it expires. And the reason is, if you look at non-medicinal ingredients, one of the non-medicinal ingredients is inulin. And I remember when I first found out what inulin was, and I was like, I think that's in the USANA probiotic. And so USANA put the food for the probiotic in their probiotic. So it's one, I mean, there's obviously a lot more science going on there, but that is one of the reasons why it's shelf stable at room temperature. The food for the probiotic is in there. So I just think that's so clever. So as I wrap things up, I just want to briefly mention the 6-week spring gut reset, which is starting on April 3rd, that's like our intake week. It is the gut health program that nourishes your body, mind, and spirit. As I said, I'm doing it with my partner, Kathy Skelcher. We are really excited to bring this program to you this year. There's so much goodness for you. And if you're worried that there's a huge time commitment, there isn't. Our recipes that we will give you are simple to make, but we also guide you so that if you already have some recipes that you love, you can maybe make substitutions or even just make some of your favorites that fit within the guidelines of the program for the 4 weeks. We encourage you to, take some things off the menu for the 4 weeks to see how you feel. And then in the last week, we help you bring those things back into your diet or lifestyle if you choose to. So for example, the very first time I did this program, way back when, 11 years ago, I realized after that I am very gluten intolerant. Now, not everybody is. Gluten-free ended up being a total craze and went out of control. And gluten itself is not bad. But for me personally, gluten and I do not get along. And I have tried it over the years. I've tried a few times and I have a reaction to it. So although I don't thankfully suffer from celiac disease, gluten, not in my diet, better for my digestion. I feel so much better. And I don't have any bowel symptoms. So that for me was something I did not bring back into my diet. We invite you to let go of alcohol and caffeine for the 4-week period. And that can be uncomfortable for some people. However, my first year, I still had a couple glasses of wine during the program. And now I stopped drinking last year. I choose not to drink alcohol after I did the program last year. I just didn't bring alcohol back into my diet. And I'm not the only one. And some that removed caffeine didn't bring it back because they just felt better. So you're going to figure out this is what's so cool about this program, because you do have individualized coaching as well as group coaching and workshops and yoga classes and gratitude meditations and everything really to support your mind, body, and spirit. We want to figure out for you how this program best serves you. So if you'd like to connect with me personally, these are just some of the ways you can, if it's all about gratitude, you can find my weekly love letter at Gratitude Love Letter there, bit.ly. The 6-week gut reset program, you can just check out the landing page there, listen to the podcast, or just send me an email. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope that you got some value from this presentation, and I just hope that you will implement maybe 1 or 2 things that you learned tonight to help not only with your gratitude practices, but also to feel better and improve your digestion. So thank you so much.